So, 8 weeks since we were here last, Carole?
Roughly that, and the three of us were here, Jim as well, and we were having a bit of a discussion about our acid-loving border here. Needs a bit of a revamp, so we did take out one or two things, did a bit of pruning as well, but it needs a bit of action now.
It does. Now, here's an example. This is a rhododendron called Cunningham's Blush. It's a white rhododendron just with a little pink bit on the petal. And this has been pruned. This has possibly been cut back for about a year.
Yes,
right?
I would
and
say.
And allowing it to regrow. Now, with the light getting into it, all the buds down near the base start to regrow.
It really shows you that it sprouts from old wood.
That's right. And it gives you an indication of where to prune it back, because it looks a bit scruffy, let's face it. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to prune it back to there, right? Because there's two nice buds there.
Yes.
I'm going to prune it back to here, because there's a nice bud there. And then I'm going to take this one right back into here. That shoot there, right back into there.
So we'll go right the way round,
Yes.
and I think it will look better, perhaps smaller.
A lot smaller. Now that's a bit smaller, isn't it?
I think it looks better, but how long is that going to take to flower?
Well, I would imagine 3 or 4 years before that comes back into flower.
So, I mean, another technique really is if you have a big rhododendron, you can do it perhaps over 3 years, take a third out each year, and you'll always get flowers.
A bit like a blackcurrant bush.
But anyway, you've got your saw.
Anything else you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely, because another discussion was the lovely Enkianthus bush there. We want to keep that, and you can see at the moment the rowan with some of the branches. I think we need to actually lift the crown a wee bit.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, when you're taking off a long branch like this where all the weight is on the end, you don't want it to rip back down the stem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's called a jump cut. So I do a cut here, just like that, an undercut, just like that there, okay? Almost halfway through, and then you go further out and you'll cut this right down, and what will happen is the branch should jump back, right? See the split there? It should jump back, and it stops the whole thing ripping back down into the stem. And what I can do now is I can tidy it up by cutting it reasonably close to the stem. Not right into the stem, but reasonably close to the main stem there.
Now, I think you can see the difference already, just taking off a couple of those branches. That's going to help the Enkianthus when it grows up the way. But of course, what about when it wants to spread this way? And when we were here at the border the last time, we all thought this rhododendron needs to come out as well because it's going to spoil that Enkianthus. But before we take it out, we'd like to propagate it because it was a lovely plant. So the way to propagate it, one way is actually simple layering. So what you need is a branch that's low down, and we need to either pin it or use a rock to get it into the ground. Now what I've done is, I don't know if you can see there, that was where there was an old leaf joint, and I've just scraped, just damaged a little bit of the bark underneath. I've plunged a pot, this is a pond pot, but I mean you could use an ordinary pot, mixed in a little bit of ericaceous compost to make sure that the soil is nice and acidic. So if I can get this rock on here, like so, let's hope we don't hear any cracking. And I'm going to put another one just to make sure that's pinned down. It's going to take probably at least a year before it starts rooting. And the last thing I need to do really is give that a good soaking as well. But George has got a different method.
I'm going to do something which is up in the air. This is air layering. And so what I've got to do here is select a shoot, a suitable young shoot, and this is one here. And I'm going to put this contraption. This is a ball, which is a hollow ball, which I can fill with moss. And I've put that on there, and then I wound the shoot, just the same way as Carole was doing, really. Similar sort of thing. And that wound there will produce roots. And then I take this side of it, that's the red side, and put it on like that. So the whole thing clips together. That is left about a year, and then it will be rooted. We can look in the clear side and see if it's rooted. Then we can cut it off at the base when it is, and hey presto, we've got a new plant.
Well, George, this is always the best bit, isn't it, when it comes to the final planting?
Yeah.
And we've got a great selection, haven't we? Not just rhododendrons, but all kinds of plants that enjoy acid conditions. You've got some lovely ones there.
This lovely little Andromeda, which is here, that's a wee dwarf one. This just a little gem. Put it in here and it'll spread out and fill that space. But that liriope that you're planting is a super thing. You know, that creeps underneath the shrubs and fills the space, and it really does well.
I love the way you say liriope. I say liriop, but I mean, I don't suppose it matters, does it?
It doesn't matter, as long as we spell it right, we can then look it up. This is Erica tetralix, one of the cross-leaved heathers. That'll be like a little shaft of sunlight in here because it's white, so that'll really brighten this area up.
Well, we're also spreading the interest of the flowers, aren't we?
Yes.
Because a lot of the the rhododendrons are over now.
Yeah.
And then next door, the foliage of that reminds me of a little whipcord hebe.
That's right. It almost is the same, but then you look at it and it's got these little purse-shaped flowers.
Yes.
You know, little white bell or purse-shaped flowers, a bit like on Pyrrhus, and it's
So
just a little
that
gem,
one,
isn't it? Cassiope, yeah. Cassiope. But we've got a lovely bit of variety now. So
we do.
that's it.
So planting depth, it's really important to keep it the same depth as the pot.
Yeah. Especially with rhodies. You should plant them slightly proud of the normal soil level so that when you put the mulch on, they're just that little bit above, you know, and into the mulch itself. But don't plant them deep. If you plant these things too deep, ericaceous plants, you tend to kill them altogether.
Because they're surface rooting, aren't they?
Yeah, they're surface rooting.
Add to that, because they're surface rooting, and we're really quite worried that the conditions are so dry at the moment, these are going to have to be well watered.
Yes.
Perhaps, will we have to leave a sprinkler on, or do we have to be a little bit careful about that now?
Well, it depends on whether you're in an area where there's water rationing, but I would be wanting to leave a sprinkler on gently overnight with these things. If they don't get soaked right in, they'll really struggle.
And we may have to continue for a few months.
But
you know, we're going to finish the planting. We've got a bit of ericaceous compost anyway, so that's adding a bit of fertiliser to the ground anyway, isn't it?
And then we'll mulch that over the top, and that's it. Yeah.
It's going to look good.
Job's a good one. Yeah.